Hello and welcome to Game of Moans, a podcast where we are rewatching Game of Thrones an episode at a time. I am Chris Bolton, with me as always the Mountain, Mr. Mark Williams.
Hello.
And we are rocketing towards the end of Season 2. This week we are on Season 2, Episode 9, Blackwater. Written by George R.R. Martin, directed by Neil Marshall. This is the fucking Game of Thrones all-stars in the house here.
Yeah, I was a bit dubious about this one because, I mean, the last time that George R.R. Martin wrote an episode, it was in Season 1, and there wasn't a great... It was one of those, he wasn't restricted, there weren't any big budgetary constraints. By the time we got to this one, obviously HBO spent a lot of money on this show, but the whole idea of writing something like this, the temptation is to write an absolutely epic battle scene with ships and all the rest of it. And one of the things that George R.R. Martin has said quite famously is that he had to really scale back what he wanted to do because he was constantly being told, no, we can't do that, we can't do that, we can't do that, it's cost too much money. So the fact that they achieved what they did and they put out the episode that they did with the sequences they had in it, I think was something of an achievement.
I think it probably works in its favour, particularly getting Neil Marshall in to direct. I know he's directed many episodes, but he's somebody that's actually very well versed in creating sort of epic action scenes on a shoestring budget.
Well, this is
his entire catalogue, basically. Yeah. And I actually feel like in a lot of ways this episode is stronger for the fact that they don't have a massive budget. You know, we'll see these grand episode-long battles throughout this show, and in my opinion, they get progressively worse as the show goes on. I think this is the best of them. I rewatching it has done nothing to dissuade me from that.
No, I think you're right.
You know, it feels like we've, you know, certainly in the direction and in the writing, they've had to be a lot sharper with what they decide to show and what they don't. They need to pick their moments, but more importantly, they need to allow the drama and the tension to come from the characters and not from the horrendous shit that's happening on screen.
Yeah,
and that works in its favor, I think.
It does, and I mean, there's a lot of talk in stuff I've read this week about it. Neil Marshall wasn't the first choice. He'd gone looking for a directing role on the show and been basically told to fuck off. And then about a week before they were due to start shooting this episode, the planned director had to leave. And at that point they went, well, you know what? Given what it is and given what his body of work is, let's give him a shot on this episode. Which might have been a bit of a poison chalice. There was always the potential that actually this was going to be too big too soon for him, but it worked out quite well. And I think that the temptation would have been to go for something like the Battle of Helm's Deep from Lord of the Rings. But instead they went down the route of things like Vikings, whereby it's all focused on the characters, not the action. And I think it works quite well. I think you're right. I think it would have been probably detrimental to the episode to try and do it any bigger.
I definitely think so. And like I say, Neil Marshall, if you look at his back catalogue, particularly up until this point, you know, we're looking at primarily horror, but we're looking at quite visceral horror as well. So we're looking at things like Dog Soldiers and The Descent, which, you know, are low budget, gory horror films. But The Descent particularly is an absolute masterwork, I think.
Yes.
And you know, if you're going to bring somebody in that needs to pull this kind of stuff off and create this tension on a shoestring budget, or you know, this isn't a shoestring. Christ, this episode probably cost as much as The Descent, if not more.
Oh, probably more.
But you know you're going to be in fairly safe hands. And actually, my first note after the fact that it was these two writing and directing is, you know, literally the first thing I've written is, this is the opening shot, and you can already tell this is in safe hands. We have grand sweeps across the fleet. We have tight trucks across the line as they're sort of on the ship, sort of getting ready for battle, and we just truck in really tight on their face. It's good stuff, you know. And it is. He understands that we don't have a massive budget, so he pulls off the grand camera move, but locks it in tight, so we don't need to see an army of thousands. We just get in and do that nice. It's almost like the start of a TV coverage of a football or a rugby match where everybody's doing the anthems. You know, he just tucks in tight on that line and just pans down it, and it makes things feel a lot bigger and a lot grander than they are. So it's very clearly going to be in safe hands. The only counterpoint I do have for that, and it is a slight one, is again this is quite a lackluster opening.
Yeah.
Visually, it's stunning.
Yeah,
but
it's so fucking slow. It's so dull.
yes. Now,
And especially, I mean, not only because it's night and because it's everything's very grey and and they're on the sea, which is grey, and the ships all look. It's a very dull, very uninteresting shot that we start with in terms of the actual color palette and the grabbing your attention. I mean, I watched I watched it on my laptop today because it was so dark I couldn't see it on my iPad the first scene, but I watched it on my laptop in the office, and yeah, it's everything's grey. Everything is just I mean, we've started the last 3 weeks at Winterfell with Theon, where everything is fucking grey apart from his stupid ginger head, and we're straight into this where everything is grey and everything's a bit dark and a bit dingy. And again, it's whether it's supposed to be setting a tone, I don't know, but it just seems to be something they've got into whereby we start in a very drab manner and nothing about it is pulling that out. I mean, the visual is good, but it's detracted by the color. It's just, I don't know, it bugged me a little bit. And the fact that I had to download it up on my laptop because I couldn't see it on the fucking iPad was really annoying.
I didn't have that problem at all. I didn't find the color palette to be particularly drab, other than I think it suits its tone, that it's drab. I didn't find it to be too dark, which is a very specific problem I will come to have with other episodes where we have these long battles. And again, that gets worse as they go. I didn't have that problem here, but then I was watching it on a reasonably large screen.
Well, yeah, I think it was mainly my problem because I was in an office, which is, at a nice office setting of about 150, 200 lux on an iPad screen and trying to manage that. So, I mean, that's part of the problem. Whereas on a laptop screen, I could move it. If I was at home and watching it on a TV with the lights down and all that, so it would have been fine. But you kind of go with what you've got.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, yeah, that's not something I can speak to. I didn't have that problem. I found it appropriate. For the tone, I could see everything, which is fine. That's the main thing. I can see everything.
That's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah, it is that there's just this slow kind of lackluster tone, and I get here that this is a stylistic choice both from writer and director. I get that we're going for a kind of calm before the storm vibe.
Yeah.
I get that, and if this was a feature film, I think that would be fine. If this was a segment in a film, if this was midpoint of Act 2 maybe, and we're building up to a grand battle that's then going to lead us into it. Okay, fine. But it's not. This is the opening of an episode of a TV show, and as we said last week, an opening needs to grab you. And whilst I am slowly drawn in, and it does kind of work because it does slowly draw me in, but initially, if it wasn't for the fact that the visuals were so strong, I'd be bored. I'll be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
But it is that the visuals are so strong that it manages to hold my attention, and then before too long we get catapulted into the episode itself, and we get this kind of slow build up of the dread before the battle then. So I kind of get what they're going for, and it almost works, I think, is what I'm trying to say, but they just don't quite nail it. I think if we could have just had something else to pull us in at the start, and then just drop back into this kind of calm before the storm, we would have been fine.
I think you're right there. I think you're right there. Incidentally, as well, on the DVD and the Blu-ray, there's a 30-minute feature about the production of this particular episode. That's worth a watch as well. It's quite a good piece. So as I just throwing that out there for people, if you do have it and you want to go through it at some point, it's definitely worth a watch.
Okay. Maybe I will have a look at that. I've got all the special features, and I do like this episode quite a bit, so I may have a look at that. But then again, that's an extra half hour or something trying to watch stuff when I could be watching whatever we're doing on SMPD next, or the next episode of this. So
yeah, that's true.
Who am I kidding? I probably won't, because I don't do any research.
I was going to say, but you have got an extra night next week, because I'm not here.
I have, and I will probably use that to do things other than podcast, to be fair. So,
why?
Yeah, because I'm not going to sit in a room and talk to myself. Unless you want me to, listeners. If you could think of something you'd like to hear me talk to myself about, then drop us a line.
No.
Maybe if it's sufficiently entertaining enough, I'll scream into the void for an hour for you.
Yeah. Although that's by the time this episode comes out, I'll be back.
Okay, so fine, I won't
Yeah.
do that.
Well,
Um,
that might be something for the future.
yeah, possibly. Okay, so we've had our chat about the opening, and so straight into the scenes. Then we get this kind of over in King's Landing. We get this kind of slow build up as everybody's preparing for battle, and we get the same thing out on the sea.
Yeah, I mean,
But
we get the scene with Davos and his son, don't we? Where there's lots of gods be kind, and just a recap that Stannis is going to make him his hand and make Davos his hand, and Davos is trying to play it all off. He's trying to be very humble, and he said gods be kind or something like that, and the son like, no, God, there's only one, and he looks
yeah,
after us all, and all this, and just bringing it because we haven't had Lord of Light and all this bullshit for a couple of weeks. So just reminding us of this, and then it's reiterated later with Varys. So I mean, it's a nice way of setting that up, and I think it's something this episode does quite well. It harks back to things just because you know you're going to need them.
yeah, in a lot of cases, it's almost like this episode has been handled by somebody who understands the craft of storytelling. It is
Yeah,
a novel idea, isn't it?
yeah,
Um, so the first, I mean, yeah, that's a good scene between the two of them.
yeah. I
But
like it.
then we get the counterpoint when we go over to King's Landing, and my first real note, straight out the gate, Bronn throws his hat in the ring for best line of the episode, and I don't think it gets topped, to be
No, I don't
honest.
think it does.
As a counterpoint, we see Bronn and his men sort of eating, drinking, and being merry, and whoring whilst they're at it as well.
Mm.
He's giving a story about how many times he's broken his nose to
Yeah,
a whore, to which she responds, "Poor nose." To which he responds, "Ah, don't feel sorry for him. He'll be halfway up your ass before the night's through."
yeah.
Great.
It is, and it's a very typical Braun line. But again, I mean, as we talked about last week when we were talking about the Emilia Clarke story and the whole gratuitous nudity, again, entirely pointless part of this scene.
Yeah, we
We
don't need the
didn't need
nudity here. I
we
agree.
didn't need the multiple whores. We didn't need him making a really fucking difficult job of undressing her.
I think
And
the multiple whores is okay in as much as it's suggesting these are uncouth men and this is how they're going to spend potentially their last night.
they're
What we
already
don't need to
drinking
see
and
is all of
singing.
them undressed.
Well, this is it. I mean, we don't need to see naked women walking around. I mean, well, this sounds terrible because, as a red-blooded heterosexual male, I like watching naked women, but it's it's unnecessary. They've already established that they're drunken soldiers because they're singing war songs while getting pissed in a tavern. Whereas the other side are preparing for battle. So we've already done that. We don't necessarily need it, and I think that it's quite distracting, and entirely gratuitous.
It is entirely gratuitous. We certainly don't need them to be naked. I have no problem with them being there. I think it adds something to the scene that they are sort of whoring, if you like. But yeah, we definitely don't need to see them naked. And if nothing else, it allows us to get that line off Bronn, which I found absolutely
Yes.
hilarious.
Yeah, I did.
Um,
I had to pause it at that point because I was laughing so much, and the guy sat behind me. I was wondering what I was doing.
Yeah, and then that's good and that's funny, but then we kind of get this showdown with the Hound then that kind of and again this shows that there's somebody both writing and directing here that understands the craft of storytelling because
Yeah,
we're constantly getting the build up of tension and the release. We're constantly getting suspense release, suspense release,
yeah,
suspense release. So we've had that slow opening where we're panning along the ship and what have you, and the conversation between Davos, and then Bronn sort of breaks that for us. He breaks the tension, but then in comes the Hound, and the two of them kind of go toe to toe, and that tension just ratchets right back up again. It's an excellent standoff
yeah,
between the two of them, and it really puts us on edge and carries through the next scene. Then when we hear the bells start ringing,
yeah.
it's why didn't we start with this?
Well, that's it. And you could have started with this and then moved out to the ships
Yes,
and into the town, and that's fine. Although again, this another great line where the bells start ringing and Varys says something on the lines of I always hate the sound of bells. It always means battle. And Tyrion says or marriage.
yes.
And it's another one that had it not been for Bronn's line in the previous scene, it would have been a contender for line of the episode, because again it's so throwaway and it's very typically what Tyrion does. He's very no he has that quick wittedness, he has that that acerbic nature, and yeah, he just throws it out there without thinking about it, and yeah, it lands really well. It moves things on quite well, and again we've got this whole thing of Podrick is putting Tyrion in his armor, and Varys, Podrick, isn't it? No, I thought you knew all the boys in the kingdom. Oh, I'm entirely sure I don't know what you mean. I'm entirely sure you're entirely sure what I mean. It's this nice sparring we had. We had some of it last week with Varys and Tyrion as well. And again, it just carries that on. It's really well. And I know it. No, I shouldn't laugh a little bit. It just looks quite funny because obviously the armor that Tyrion is wearing as well, because it's a body size tunic, but because he's a dwarf, it comes down past his nuts and down to his knees.
Yes.
And again, it just looks really funny, and it's not supposed to. And it's quite hard to take him seriously at that point because he's just like, he might as well be there in a metal dress.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It does look odd on him. I actually think it
looks good.
Badass though.
It does. It looks good. It just looks a bit disjointed because obviously we see so many people in armor throughout the show, and it just looks as though, I mean, with all the money his family have got, and the fact that would have had to be custom made anyway, you'd think they'd make one that fits.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, I don't have an issue with it. I think he looks badass. And in fact, I think this episode does a fantastic job of really selling Tyrion, of really, again, to use wrestling parlance, as I did last week, to really give him the push. They really push him over in this episode. Like they build him as a hero here. You know, throughout the show, he's always been, as we've said, sort of the most likable Lannister, and he's shown these kind of these comedic properties, and he's had his moments where he's risen to the occasion and stuff like that. But this absolutely propels him forward into one of the show's greatest heroes, and it starts here in this scene with again a great line from Varys and expertly delivered. It's one of those lines, and I think we had this in the last George R.R. Martin episode as well. I remember talking about it, where there are these lines in here which could be dreadful if they weren't handled properly. They would land with a resounding thud. But it's delivered perfectly. You know, we get the whole speech about how there's going to be a battle coming and how Stannis is on his way. And Varys says, "Tonight, I believe you are the only man who can stop him." That is a great line. It is a cheesy line, but it's delivered perfectly. It goes over perfectly, and it's great stuff. It really builds Tyrion as the hero of this episode, and right now the hero of the show. You know, he's taken a hero's journey here. He has to lead a battle. He's going to war.
Yeah, and I mean, not only that. I mean, it's quite interesting because at this point, I think he's the only one who believes they can win.
Yes,
because I mean, all the drunken soldiers downstairs, including Bronn and the Hound, they're all going into it. Okay, they're all pissed up, but you get the impression the Hound is just not. You know, he's got a really bad feeling about this. He's not wanting to get involved. He's distancing himself a bit. Bronn is just Bronn. He's his usual cocksure shut self. But you get the impression that actually, you know what, it's not necessarily the thing I want to do. Mm-hmm. And he's just kind of there. Whereas Tyrion's going, well, okay, we have to do this for the good of the kingdom, because if we don't, we're all going to die. No, my head will be on a spike, the same as Joffrey. So let's not do that. I think he's the only one who's going, yeah, I've got a plan. I know what I'm doing, and we're going to win this. And everybody else is kind of doubting that. And I mean, we get into the scene. I think we've jumped around a little bit. I think we might have sort of got the order a little bit wrong, which isn't the end of the world. But there's a scene with Cersei and Maester Pycelle where he gives her a vial of something. I can't remember what it's called.
Yes, that's back at the start. But I mean, I think at the time when I was making the notes, it felt like a fairly nothing scene.
It is and it isn't. I mean, it does well because it moves her along. Oh, it starts her off for where she's going to go later in the episode. That again,
it pays
even
off.
She doesn't believe they're going to win.
Yeah.
I mean, when we get to the bunker later on or wherever it is, that even she doesn't believe that they're going to win. So the fact that Tyrion is there and he's getting suited up, he's getting kitted up, and he's like, yeah, fucking going to war, man. It really does sort of set him apart from everybody else.
Yeah, and as I say, that line from Varys really helps to push him over. You know, he is a hero here. He's rising to the occasion.
Yeah.
And it gets the blood pumping. You know, that we're then straight into this next scene where the drums start going and the tension just really ratchets nicely again. We just tighten the screw that little bit more. You know, we've had that scene with Bronn and the Hound, and it gets a bit tense. Then again, the slight release with Tyrion and Varys, where he's saying, "You're a hero, you can do this." So again, just the slightest little release, and then straight back into it with the drums starting again. But then again, we just break that tension ever so slightly with this lovely scene between Bronn and Tyrion, as they just meet on their way to battle.
Yeah.
And just give each other this kind of acknowledgement that, you know, it's the complete antithesis of the awkward bro moment between John and Rob back in season 1. Like, this is far removed from that. This is two men, both confident in their abilities, both in their own ways leaders here, because Bron's going to be leading the army as well.
Yeah.
And just both acknowledging that, you know, this might be the end of their friendship because one of them may very possibly die tonight. And whilst neither of them has ever said to the other or acknowledged the fact that they're close friends and that, you know, yes, they do love each other because they do share a friendship. Yeah. And they don't need to say it here. It goes unspoken. They just need to say sort of, be careful. I'll see you when it's over, the thing.
Yeah, that's it. And
it's handled really well.
I
Perfectly.
mean, yeah. The second half of this scene, where Sansa, they leave and Sansa and Joffrey have their little exchange, I just want to punch him in the face.
So do I, but Sansa is brilliant.
She is, and she's, I mean,
like a fiddle.
Yeah, so she absolutely, she undoes him completely here, and to a point where, like, she does it so deftly, you know. He makes a comment, King doesn't explain battle strategy to stupid little girls. You're right, you're right, I'm stupid.
I'm stupid. Yeah, she plays him like an absolute fiddle. Yeah. She's growing in power week by week now, and she's really starting to morph into the character that I grew to love by the end of the show.
That's right. And there's a look from Tyrion where, I mean, we had it a couple of weeks ago. Tyrion made a comment like, no, you may survive us all, or something like that. And again, you see him looking where he's just like, yeah, I can kind of see what. No, she gets it. She's starting to understand in a way that Ned never did, and the way that a lot of people don't understand the way the game is played. Sansa is starting to understand it and to play it herself, and we'll get more of that later on when she's locked in with Cersei and the other women. So yeah, I mean, Joffrey, yes, he's an annoying little prick and want to punch him in the face, but Sansa was absolutely brilliant here. Sophie Turner did a really good job.
Yeah, it's great stuff. And then straight off the back of that, we're into this sort of this initial scene with Tyrion sort of scoping out what he's going to do, and Joffrey kind of hovering over him, trying to be the king, but not having a clue. And once again, you know, we get, after Sansa's just made a fool of him, Tyrion begins to dress him down as well, and does it once again with complete sort of just utter conviction, like he's not afraid to speak to Joffrey and put him in his place. And it's once again great. Tyrion again is a true hero here. You know, this is his battle. Joffrey's the king, but this is Tyrion's battle.
Oh yeah,
Joffrey needs to fucking well do as he says.
Yeah, and I mean the fact that Joffrey's all, where are the ships? Where are the men? What's going on? What are you doing? And Tyrion's just there. The expression he's wearing on his face is just shut the fuck up and let me get on with my job. Yeah. You know, if you want to do it yourself, if you think you can do better, jog on, mate. Otherwise, back off.
Yes.
Yeah, and again, it works really well, and I mean, we get a lot of that. I mean, right up until we get the big reveal with the ships shortly. Joffrey has no idea what he's doing, and Tyrion is just enduring him. He's just putting up with him because he knows actually when his plan comes through, it's gonna shut him up. It's gonna shut everybody up.
Yes, but of course we don't quite know about the plan yet. There's a little tip to us just before we cut away.
Yes,
you know. Which is again very well done and very clever writing, and the type of thing that we have not seen on this show to date.
Very rarely.
There's actual seeding here, which fucking hell. You know, that's a rarity, and I appreciate it greatly. So then I think it's then we get to our first scene with Cersei and Sansa. I think is just following this, isn't it? Or is that later on? I believe it's just following this.
Yeah, I think it is, yeah.
Where we get the exchange about traitors, isn't it?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, which again is, you know, eloquent writing. You know, it's people not just saying what they think out loud. This is people talking in riddles. You know, there are connotations here. It's not just a case of I am going to tell you exactly how I feel right now because that is how a story works. Goodbye.
Yeah, that's what we need to do. It works really well. And the whole thing about talking about traitors, the fact that Ilan Payne is there and Sansa's uncomfortable, obviously because he executed her father, and Cersei, said, "Oh, what's he doing here? He's here to protect us," and then she sends him off straight away. And so, as a viewer, you kind of think, well, he's not there to protect them. Presumably, he's there to kill them if it all goes pear-shaped. But Sansa, being as naive as she is, doesn't quite twig that. So then she goes back. No, she leaves Cersei. Cersei makes her drink, which is always fun. So I'm getting minus pissed, obviously.
It's like they're playing some sort of weird drinking game, isn't it?
It is,
like
especially
every
the way
time
she
I
says
make a
drink.
veiled threat, you drink.
You drink, yeah. And if you don't, I'll tell you to drink.
Yeah.
So I mean that I did think that as well. Actually, it was quite funny. But yeah, so we cut away from that. But I mean, when we go back to that later on, again, Cersei is considerably more pissed, and she starts mocking.
This episode, her
she is
descent into crazy old pissed lady.
Yeah,
is fantastic. She's absolutely wonderful in this episode.
I mean, again, generally give her anything that's half decent or better, and Lena Headey will do a fantastic job with it. Give her a lot of the dialogue that they give her, and she makes it what she can, but some of it she struggles with, I think, a little bit. I think that's true of everybody. But yeah, I mean, generally she doesn't go far wrong. I mean, we say this time and time again, but I mean, she's, in terms of the performers in the show, I think she's one of my favorites.
Yeah, and as you say, you give her the right stuff, and she's great. The writing is eloquent here for a change, which makes a nice difference in this show. As I say, I do love the line "traitors are a danger to us all." I love the delivery, I love the venom behind it, and I love the veiled threat. It's great. It's clever writing, and thank Christ, it's about time. So then
we're
we
only
get
19 episodes in, so I can't rush these things.
Well, I mean, we have seen some writing of this quality, and I'd argue better, in 2 previous episodes that I can think of.
Yeah.
But, that's still, including this one, 3 episodes out of 19. So not a great batting average.
Not really, no.
We get back outside, and we get the reveal of the wildfire, which again is great. It's handled so well. We call back to right back at the start of the season, and we see that the kind of we're allowed to see the slow trickle of the wildfire coming out of the boats. And fucking hell, we've got a director that understands drama. So he lets us in on what's going to happen just before it happens, instead of just, again, smacking us in the face with it.
Well, yeah, that's right.
You're just allowed to go, what's that green Oh,
well, that's it. I mean, we've only seen it in a little vial, haven't we? So we haven't seen it in that quantities, and it's different again because of the color palette. I don't think it's not massively different, but when we saw it, it was kind of like an ectoplasmic green, from Ghostbusters. Whereas here, obviously, because it's darkened, it looks a bit more menacing, but it's so vivid against the grey, it still stands out. But you've still kind of got to think, hang on, what's that?
And that's how it works. You're thinking, hold on, what is it? And you realise at the same time as the characters when they go, wildfire, oh shit, it's too late, everything's on fucking fire now.
Well, that's
Played
it.
for and got, beautifully handled. Tyrion's a fucking genius.
Yeah.
Great. And my God, that wide shot of the fleet on fire, with the just green fire spouting up into the sky, is beautiful. It's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it is really good. It works really well. I think again, when you go back close into people kind of jumping off the boats because they're on fire, and the fire spreading and all this sort of stuff. Again, it looks fantastic. It works really well. And because we're not concentrating on that big wide shot, we are so close in, and we can hear people screaming. You can practically smell the skin burning at this point. It really drags you into that. You are right there with it.
You are, and there is a beautiful juxtaposition on the reaction shots here when it cuts back and Tyrion's realised what he's done and realised the death toll, and there is a look of absolute horror on his face, and then we cut instantly to Joffrey behind him, who is grinning from ear to ear with utter glee.
That's it. I think, there's the contrast between those two, but everybody else is kind of sort of slack-jawed about it. Like, what the fuck did he just do? How did he do that? And everyone's kind of amazed, whereas Joffrey is absolutely elated by it because presumably it means he's going to keep his throne. But Tyrion is, and again the way the sound carries, you can just hear the screams as he's looking out.
Yeah, and he just looks horrified.
And you can just see the comprehension of what he's actually done. Yeah. Yes, okay, it was a great strategic move. It was a great military move, but oh my God, I've just killed hundreds, if not thousands, of people. And it will take its toll. Holy fuck balls. And it will take its toll. And when you see that juxtaposition as well between him and Joffrey, like you fully understand each of those characters in that moment.
Great writing does not need dialogue. And
No.
this is a prime example of that. They don't need to say anything. It's all there for us.
Yeah.
Um,
And again,
Wonderful
fair play
stuff.
to the to two actors, Peter Dinklage and Jack Leeson. It's probably some of the best work we've had from the pair of them to date.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And as you said, you didn't have to say a word.
No, no words spoken. It's just great writing, and it's handled perfectly by the cast and the
Yeah.
director. Brilliant moment, absolutely brilliant. We spend some time back off with Thanos, and we will move quickly through this episode because actually it is a fast moving episode. From
It
here on
does.
out,
It
it's
moves. It
essentially
moves at quite a lick.
2 or 3 scenes is what it is that we just cross cut between.
Yeah.
Incidentally, we cross cut between them properly, not like in episodes that have been handled by Benioff and Weiss,
Yeah.
where it's all over the shop. We actually go with natural points. So we're back with Stannis, and this is where he takes a heel turn.
Yes.
But it's not out of nowhere, is the thing. In the heat of the battle, it doesn't feel like it hasn't been worked for. You know, we know that Stannis is determined, and we've had his reasoning last week. So, you know, much like with the other famous heel turn that we'll try and avoid talking about too much till we get there. Like,
Yeah.
you understand why this happens, but it's a heel turn nonetheless. You know, when he's told if you do this, hundreds will die, and he corrects them and says no, thousands,
Yeah.
and takes the action anyway because at this point he has to. He's come
Well,
this far.
this is it. I mean, if he turns tail and runs now, they've lost all those ships, they've lost all those people, and they've achieved fuck all. And that's what war is. Now, you don't turn around and say, actually, you know what? Don't feel like it today. I'm going to go away because you've just decimated my fleet. So he has to plow on, and as a general, as a king, he has to accept that there will be casualties, but it's for what he perceives as a greater good because he's in the right, he's the rightful king, etc., etc., etc. So it's justified because no,
Yes.
they're putting things right. So yes, okay, people will die. I know people will die, and that's regrettable, that's lamentable, but they knew what they signed on for. And at the end of the day, I want to be sitting on that fucking chair, that really uncomfortable looking chair with all the spikes in it.
Yeah, and again, it's interesting here that I say he takes a heel turn, but only in so much that Tyrion has thus far been framed as the hero of this battle
Well,
because
yeah,
they are the
that's the
invading
thing. I think,
army. But
yeah,
there's
and
no, truthfully, there's no hero here, as we've just seen with Tyrion's horror when he realizes how many people he's killed, and
well,
now
yeah,
with Stannis' determination, but he knows that he's going to take thousands of lives with him. There is no hero here, in truth.
no,
This is
and I think,
war.
yeah, and I think that's kind of the point, isn't it? Is that
Yes,
people are doing what they have to do, whether they like
yes.
it or not, and whether they will eventually have to to deal with that. I mean, I said throughout this show, Tyrion has to deal with the weight of decisions he makes because
Hmm.
he gets himself into scenarios, he gets himself into positions of power whereby he has to make decisions that are for the greater good. But as a result, people suffer.
Yes.
And yeah, this is a very good episode for that. And I think that again, because of the way it's been written and it's been directed, that's handled quite well. Whereas other writers and directors we've had on in this season and in the first season possibly wouldn't have done it the justice it deserves and possibly wouldn't have done it as well. And I think we'd have been having an entirely different conversation about it right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think this pairing of writer and director works very, very well. They're clearly kind of in sync with each other.
Yeah.
I think Neil Marshall is capable of handling most things anyway, regardless
Yes.
of who's written it. You know, he is a very competent director. Um, but yeah, I feel like these two have just they've really found each other's groove here, and they're working really well together. So we cut back to Cersei again, back in her chamber with all the women. And it's Cersei getting mean drunk with Sansa essentially,
Yes.
and it's the absolute best that Cersei has been for weeks, in my
Yeah.
opinion. The last
I mean, she's
last
been
sort of
so
two
fucking
weeks,
underused.
yeah, she just hasn't really had much to do. And when we have seen her, just for the sake of seeing her, actually, particularly 2 weeks ago, some of her dialogue was fucking abysmal.
Yeah.
But you know, she's back on top form here. She's like a caged animal down here.
Yeah.
Um, you know, she just wants to get out and take charge, and she can't.
Yes.
So instead, she just toys with everyone and everything around her. She goes full on Wicked Queen in this room.
Yes.
And it's great. It's really, really good stuff. The rape discussion is unfortunate and distasteful. And it actually undoes a lot of the good, I think, that was being done earlier in the scene. Because, again, there is a lot of good dialogue from her. There's a lot of subtlety. There's a lot of veiled threat. And then we just flat out get into discussion about rape, which is frankly uncalled for and unneeded.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think that we've had enough from her, which is implied. We don't need an explicit threat.
No.
Actually, if that door gets open, you're getting raped. That's unnecessary. It's unseemly. And I think that it possibly is the low point for the episode, I think.
It absolutely is. I totally agree. And I've written that here. It undoes a lot of good. The episode is so good that I just let it fly past me. In a worse episode, I would probably be ranting about this for quite a while.
Yeah.
But I just let it fly past me because we're straight back into the battle, and it's gory, grim, and great is what I've written. It's just people, again, their heads cut in half, and we're getting down and dirty with it. We're in with the troops. It's good. It's well shot. It's exciting.
Yeah, and we get this nice bit with the Hound, whereby we were told very early on that his brother burned his face in a fire for playing with one of his toys, and that's kind of never been mentioned again. Now all of a sudden we see him with fire, and he's a cowering dog. No pun intended. And he just turns into an absolute little bitch because there's some fire around, and he then for their standoff earlier, he is effectively rescued by Bronn.
He's rescued by Bronn, which is a lovely touch. Again, a call back to earlier on and a nice payoff to that scene. You get the impression that this standoff was all really didn't come from a position of pure hate. It was all just macho posturing anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
So Bronn just kind of digging him out. It is great. It's a nice payoff to that scene and gives Bronn the upper hand. And just before that does happen, we cross cut back and forth this battle, as I say, and we've just sort of missed one cut back to Cersei in the middle of that, where she has a discussion with Sansa, and that is, and it's all down to her delivery. The line is good, but it's her delivery that really nails it. Another contender for line of the episode for me. It's not particularly funny. It's just great. Where we get this exchange. Where Sansa says to her, "You were Robert's queen," and she responds with, "And you will be Joffrey's. Enjoy."
Yeah.
And it's the delivery of it is just absolutely merciless.
Well, this is, and I mean, we've seen some occasions, or some instances of this with Cersei before, where she does have these moments of brutal honesty.
Yeah.
And this is one of them, and it's partly because she's drunk, but also because she's just like, "That's the stupidest thing you've ever said, you stupid little bitch."
Oh yeah,
yes, I know. I was just
pay for it.
Yeah. So yes, I'm aware of that because I had to sleep next to him for however many years it was. Doesn't mean it was doesn't mean it was worthwhile. Doesn't mean it was anything else. It was just something I had to endure. And yeah, it's just her coming out swinging because she doesn't want anybody seeing any sort of vulnerability or any sort of reality to her. She wants them to see this all-powerful woman. Who is just she's in this room because she's not allowed to go and fight, but she'd be out there kicking ass like everybody else, and so because of that, she's just going to lay into Sansa and anybody else she can find, and then starts on Shae, which is again, it's slightly comical, it's entirely unnecessary, but yeah, it is what it is, really.
But the addition of Shae into the scene adds an extra level of tension.
Yes.
I quite like it.
Well, yeah, especially because we had the thing last week whereby they kidnapped Ros thinking that she was Shae, and also that is there. But yeah, the whole thing of I had a wherever she's from servant girl once. You've been here 10 years, you don't even know how to courtesy. What's wrong with you, sort of thing. It's yes, she's being mean, but we've already had her at sort of the peak of her powers with Sansa. We don't need her doubling down on it. Because but again, though,
the scene isn't so much about her being mean. That's what's written, and that's kind of that is one reading of it. But it's more about, just like with Tywin and Arya, it's more about I fucking see you, Shae. I fucking know what's going on here. She might not have put it together that she's Tyrion's lover yet, but it's definitely like something doesn't add up with you, and I know, and I will get to the bottom of it. But she's doing it at the moment in that kind of passive aggressive way that she's such an expert at, much like she's cut Sansa down to size in the same way over the course of 2 seasons, where she's been friendly at one juncture and then out comes the veiled threat the next. And this is that again, I think. It's not literally her ridiculing Shay for not being able to curtsy. It's more, yeah, your story is bullshit, my dear. Yeah. And we are going to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, no, I see that. I just think that for where we are, it doesn't necessarily fit. I think it takes away. Momentum in this episode has been very good. It's gone along a lick, and I think that it's just something that possibly added 2 minutes to the scene, which it didn't need.
Yeah, maybe. I don't dislike it though, so.
I just think it was slightly misplaced, but yeah, it's not a distraction from the episode as a whole. I felt it could have come possibly in the next episode and have been slightly more impactful, but that's just me.
Yeah, we do. I'm not sure exactly where it happens because I don't think I've noted it anywhere, but we do get a nice moment with Shay as well just before Sansa sort of gets out of there. Where Shay's kind of telling her to go, and Sansa says, "You can't stay here; they'll rape you."
Yeah,
and she just reveals that she's packing heat. She has a knife strapped to her leg, and she just very determinedly says, "No one is raping me."
Yeah,
and it's again a nice moment. I like Shay a great deal, as I've said before, and yeah, just she absolutely means it. If anyone comes near her, she's going to stab him in the fucking eyeball, no doubt about it. So we get back to the battle and we get this bit with Bronn saving the Hound, which we've talked about. Yeah. And then again, we get a nice juxtaposition between the two sides where we've got Stannis leading his men from the front. He fights well. He is a good fighter. He leads the attack. And actually,
he's right on the front of that first boat.
He is. He's straight up there, straight to the wall. And they actually managed to turn the tide of the battle, at which point Joffrey, instead of leading his own men from the front, dutifully runs away.
Well, I mean, it's been geared to that, and obviously, Cersei sent Lancel to get him, and you can. Again, there's a thing of the queen has summoned you or whatever else, and Joffrey immediately knows what's going on. He's like, "Oh, did she have some urgent?" No, and Tim's like, "He can't go. He's leading the army." "Oh, did she have some urgent business for me?" And Lancel just completely fucks it up and goes, "I don't know, my lord. She didn't say. Your Grace, she didn't say." And you can just see that. You can just see Joffrey sort of smacking his face, going, "Oh, you dull twat." But yeah, so then he dutifully fucks off, and immediately the army lose they lose their men. They might as well be peasants with sticks at that point, because nobody's willing to fight for him because he's run off.
Signified, and again, clever writing here. Okay, now this is a whole army, so you can see it visually because you can see them dwindle. Yeah. But rather than give you a huge expository line of, "Oh, don't go, you'll lose the men," or whatever, which is hinted at throughout, but rather than literally say that, what we get instead is we get the delivery from the Hound that absolutely hammers the message home for you if you didn't understand what was happening. Yeah. Where he says, "Fuck the King's Guard, fuck the city, and fuck the king."
Yeah.
And it is, on the one hand, it makes perfect sense for his character because that's where he's at right now. But on the other hand, as I say, it gives us that story beat. It's clever writing. It's exposition that you didn't know was hitting you between the eyes. Yeah. And that is about the best trick you can pull as a writer. It's very, very good. I like it a lot. It's a good moment. I like the Hound anyway, so of course I like it. But yeah, that's good. And then just when you think it can't get any better, we finally get Tyrion rising to the occasion, which has been hinted at throughout the episode. He's going to be the hero. He's going to take the lead. And here he comes. He gets up on the battlements and he gives his Braveheart speech.
Yes.
And he manages to rally the troops behind him. This half man, this until now object of ridicule, suddenly rises to the occasion, stirs up the troops, and it works as this kind of brilliant sort of end of Act 2, start of Act 3 sort of transition where this is hopeless. We're being led into battle by a half man. How can we possibly win? But
I mean, not only that,
we'll follow him.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, the whole thing of the speech, and it ends really well. And you talk about this is Stannis. He's coming to take your home, take your gold, rape your women. And he said, "Well, they're at the gates, and we can't get out." And he said, "Yeah, I'll show you how to get out. It's fine. We'll come around behind them and fuck them in the arses." And it's just that the cheer that gets, I mean, no, for a show that's not exactly famed for its subtlety, that was quite a good line. But yeah, and, as I said, he completely wins them over to a point where we were only talking 3 weeks ago, whereby people in the street were calling him a demon monkey.
Yes.
This guy is hated, but he leads them into battle. And yeah, this is his moment. This is his big bit. This is his chance for glory, and it works for a while. And I can't remember where we cut to next, but then the next time
we go
see
back to
them,
Cersei, and we get this brilliant scene where Lancel runs in
yes,
to tell her what's going on, and she's quite displeased with him. So she just, because he's trying essentially to argue the case for Joffrey leading the battle,
yes,
he makes the mistake of trying to stand up to her. Foolish boy.
Well, I mean, it's made worse by the fact as well that he was injured earlier on. He got hit by an arrow
yes.
in the shoulder, and she just hits him in the wound.
She just wails on him.
She just smacks his armor into the wound, and he cries like a little bitch with a skinned knee.
And again, just the fact that she's been building up this kind of mean, drunken vibe all episode, and it just all gets leveled straight at him. And it's kind of the first time we've really seen her get physical like that.
Yes.
And it's, in a way, it is a little bit shocking. It's like, oh fuck, she's not afraid to throw down, because until this point she's been this kind of master manipulator, almost just getting everybody else to do a bidding for her and using her wiles and her words to get what she wants. But here she's absolutely like, nah, do you know what? Shit's getting real. I'm drunk.
Yeah, fuck this.
Fuck you.
I'm going.
Yeah.
And off she storms. She takes Tommen with her, and off she goes to God knows where at this point. And again, Sansa steps up. She shows a bit of leadership.
Takes a huge leap in character here. Huge. This really thrusts her forward light years.
We had early on where Cersei's mocking her for praying and saying why she doesn't pray and all the rest of it. And Sansa's first thing is, the queen is doing this for our good. She's kept us in here, where this is the safest place in the city. I think we should pray or sing a hymn or whatever it is. And she rallies those women. She gets them. She takes their mind off the fact that actually somebody's going to be beating that door down in a minute to start raping everybody. We'll just not concentrate on that. We'll focus on the good. We'll focus on the positive. We'll keep people's spirits up. And this is probably the first time where she shows any sort of leadership chops. And like, she's had a really shit time up to now, and she's been. I mean, the first season she was kind of simpering and idiotic, but she's had a pretty shit time. She will have an even shitter time seasons 3, 4, 5, possibly 6 as well. I can't remember. And then I said, she grows into that leadership role. But this is really the first step for her, whereby she's like, actually she's commanding a group of people and saying, look, I know how we can get through this. It might seem stupid, but let's just carry on as we are. Let's just do this, and this will pass the time and take your minds off the fact that you're all about to be horribly raped and murdered. And it's a really good move for her.
It is. She, as I say, it's a quantum leap forward for her character. It's excellent stuff.
Yeah.
And then, of course, she leaves after this discussion. This is where the discussion happens with Shay.
Yes. Yeah.
She leaves now for the second time in a couple of weeks. What the fuck is the Hound doing in her chamber, and where did he come from? Well, I know he left the battle, but why, of all places, does he go to Sansa's chamber? He doesn't know that she's going to be there. In fact, he wouldn't at all expect her to be there.
No, he'd expect her to be down in where they're hiding.
So he kind of asks her to go with him and stuff. But it's just one of those complete lapses in logical reasoning.
Yes,
that
it
can
is.
just pull you out of a story. Like, they could have run into each other in a corridor.
Yeah, absolutely.
On her way. Like, for him to be there makes no fucking sense whatsoever, and it pulls me straight out of this scene.
And again, they've done it for shock. They've done it to add an air of menace, because she's there. She goes in. She does exactly as Shay's told her. She bars the door. She puts all the furniture against her. She locks herself in. She is secure. Nobody's getting in. Conversely, she ain't fucking getting out. And then he speaks, and again, it just ramps up this threat, because all the way through she's been terrified of him, probably because of the way he looks, because she's a superficial cunt, but she's been absolutely terrified of him since day one, and all of a sudden she's just barricaded herself in the room with him. So there's this implied threat straight away until he opens his mouth, and I think that's why they've done it. But it's like, logically it doesn't work. From the show's own internal logic, that doesn't work, because there's no reason for her to go to that room. And there's no reason for him to sit there and wait to be picked off. It just doesn't make any sense.
None whatsoever. So,
and then again, why is he offering to take her back north? What purpose is it? Again, it doesn't make any sense. He spent the entire show keeping her in line, keeping everybody in line for Joffrey. Then all of a sudden, it's like, well, I'm leaving. You can come with me. I'll look after you. I won't hurt you. I'm going north. Maybe I'll go to Winterfell. I was like, why? Seriously, what the fuck?
Yeah, makes no fucking sense. We don't need this scene at all, to be honest. But nevertheless, it's the worst scene in this episode, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's there. Whatever. The rest of the episode makes up for it.
Yes.
I'll give them this one. At least we didn't cut to fucking Karth. So.
Well, I've got to say, actually, I mean, obviously the whole episode takes place in and around this battle, and it's we talk every week about the lack of focus and how much it jumps around, and then when we get these episodes, normally we moan because they're so focused, they don't have enough focus, they're too sharp, and you don't pick up the periphery of it. This one is actually done quite well. I think that the fact that it's focused enough, but you're not so dragged into one, but you're not thinking about what's going on elsewhere. You're not thinking of, while you're on the battlements, you're not thinking that, you're not forgetting there are ships coming. You're not forgetting there are people inside the walls. It wells very well, and it's a testament to the writing, because more heavy-handed writers have done on this show a lot worse. So it's quite an interesting touch.
Yeah, it is. I think it's super focused. Actually, we've got, as I say, we've essentially got an A story and a B story here, which is classic for TV. We've got the A story of the battle and the B story of Cersei locked down in the chambers.
Yeah,
and it works fine. We don't need anything else. Look, at this point in the show, as you all know by now that listen, my two favorite characters are off and running. We've got Jon and Ygritte doing their thing north of the wall. We don't see them at all this episode, and I don't miss them because this is so focused.
Well, that's it. But I think it's properly focused. It's not focusing on too much minutia, which we've had before, where they have tried to focus and it's gone wrong, and as we will have in later episodes as well, whereby they try and pull everybody away from the wider story, even the wider story of that particular moment. So, I mean, when you get the Battle of the Bastards, for example, in season 6, you get so laser focused on Ramsay, you don't spot a lot of the other things that are going on, and things aren't seeded because you don't have the opportunity. So it just you end up, you might as well be watching a documentary, because there's no opportunity for any thought. Whereas this one, I say, this is probably the best example of a focused episode, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So we cut back to the battle from here. Tyrion leading the charge from behind to fuck him in the
this bit, I spat coffee.
Me
all
too.
over my
I bet
computer.
you're going to talk about the same thing that I've got on my next note here, which is just Tyrion kneecaps the fucking soldier. And
it's just the fact that he
hilarious.
walks up behind him so absolutely nonchalant, matter of fact, and he's got the axe. I think he's got the axe in one hand.
Yeah,
and he just swipes him as if you'd see it in wrestling, whereby you whip your hand, your flat palm at somebody's Achilles, and you whip them up. But instead of that, he's got an axe in his hand, and he whips it very lightly, and it takes somebody off below the knee, and the leg just goes flying.
It's brilliant, because it's kind of akin to him just going for a headshot.
Well, yeah, that's it. And I mean, we've had with Stannis, we have it very shortly, where he literally takes the top of somebody's head off.
Yeah.
We've had that, and then we get this one, and literally I spat coffee all over my computer. I spent 20 minutes on drying my keyboard. Because there was just coffee. I was taking buttons off and sticking tissues in it and all sorts, just to try and dry it out, because I just spat half a mug of coffee over it. That was brilliant. And then you get the whole thing where that again turns the tide of the battle back towards the Lannisters, or towards the throne, and it works quite well. You have this battle. They quite quickly dispatch Stannis' army, and then again they're all celebrating, and Tyrion turns around and says, "Oh, fuck me."
Wonderful moment again, perfectly executed.
The
just
delivery,
the look
on
Tyrion's face, the delivery, and then
it's just
the cut back.
Absolutely destroyed, crushed. His moment of elation has been robbed, because all of a sudden there's fucking thousands of cunts on horseback bearing down on him.
Yeah,
and he knows he's now in the shit.
Yeah, and they're in the middle of celebrating as well. So it's that tension and release. We've had that little bit of a battle where it was swaying towards Stannis, then they come out, turn it round, they tip the boat over, and they're all cheering and they celebrate Tyrion as a hero.
They're singing his name and all.
Yeah, so we've had that release, and then bang, here's the gut punch. Actually, now you're all gonna die.
Yeah, and the line got me. It was just, oh fuck me.
And It's perfect. It's not eloquent writing.
No,
It's
it's
not a
not.
clever quip. It's none of those things. It's real for that moment. It's
Yes.
what you would say in that moment.
Yeah,
You
that's
wouldn't
right.
you wouldn't think of something clever to say. You would just say, "Oh, fuck."
Yeah, that
You know?
absolutely. And yeah, it's handled brilliantly. And again, the shot in the reverse, again, it's absolutely perfect. Again, no, a director who knows how to do it
Yep.
says a lot.
And then all hell breaks loose. Tyrion takes one to the face.
Now, I didn't get this right. Tyrion takes one to the face from one of his own side.
I thought that as well, but I didn't know if I was mistaken.
They're in city guard shit. They're in the gold helmet and with the fucking the three not plumes but the three ridges on top. It's one of the city guard that does it.
Weird.
I can't remember why, but again, the whole thing, the sword swings and he clearly gets hit because he recalls, and you think, oh fuck me, Tyrion's dead. And I remembered seeing it first time around.
You're kind of unsure because he gets this kind of superficial cut on his face.
That's
like, it. But it's not like they cleave his head in half like Stannis did to the guy.
No, but I mean, when you get it, you see the guy swing and you see him kind of pull back. But then you see him just sort of recoil as if he has been struck, obviously. But again, his reaction to it, and you think, oh, fuck me, they've killed Tyrion, you bastards.
Bastard, yeah.
And it was just like, oh, right, okay. And I remember watching it first time, and this was one of the first ones I actually properly watched. I mean, when I was first watching these, I was not working. I was spending a lot of time playing FIFA and in between looking for jobs. It's like, right, I'm going to sit down for an hour and play PlayStation and watch an episode of this. And this was the first one where I was like, right, okay, put the PlayStation remote down. I need to watch it. I need to concentrate on this. And I remember thinking, fuck, they've killed Tyrion.
And had they done that, this would be a perfect example of how to kill someone properly, with purpose and meaning. You've built him up as a hero. He has a quest, and he's died in that quest. And then you've had the whole thing with Bronn, so Bronn can go and avenge him. All of the pieces are in play. So for him not to die actually subverts your expectation. And that's how you do that. You don't just... I was about to snap my fingers then. I caught myself. You don't just off people for dramatic effect like this show does and expect it to work. This is how you do it. And then when you do subvert that, it's that much more impactful, because all of a sudden then here comes Tyrion's White Knight. And it's not Bronn.
No, it's
Podrick. Which is perfect, again, because it's played for at the start of the episode. They remind us of who Pod is, because he's kind of been in and out for the last couple of weeks. He's still a relatively minor character. He's got enough about him that we recognise him, but we needed to be reminded that he's Tyrion's squire earlier on. And so we get that little hint dropped in. And again, it's almost like somebody who understands the structure of storytelling wrote this, because here he is doing what a squire should do, saving his master.
Yeah, that's right. And again, we had it last week or the week before with Jamie, whereby he was talking with his 16th cousin, 14 times removed or whatever it was, about the when he squired for Barristan Selmy, and when the Lannister boys squired for him. We've set up in the last couple of episodes. Well, Martin's gone back and gone, right, well, you've already given us this. I don't need to explain how this works. You've already done that. I can just now move on from that, and people will accept it because it follows on as a continuity. I don't need to tell people why he's done it. I don't need to thank him for it, because that's his job. And we know that's a job because we've seen him doing it earlier in the episode. And you've told us 2 weeks ago what a squire does.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it works really well. But, yeah, for me, I mean, when I first watched it, and I initially thought Tyrion was dead. Like, you know what? Fuck it. I can't. That's the main reason I watch this for Tyrion, so I'm done. And then, obviously, he didn't die. And he gets this really cool scar for the next couple of years, which is fucking awesome. Yeah,
although very superficial, as I say.
But the scar does work quite well, actually, because, I mean, and again, the effect, the makeup effect on it is really good, because it does open up, and because of the way they've done it, and it's obviously it's a technique they've used, but when his face is moving, it's kind of like the skin is flapping a little bit, and there's where the blood is starting to clot, it sort of fills up a little bit, so it bulges. And it works really well. I think it looks really good.
I've never honestly noticed that.
I noticed that today. I didn't notice that first time around, but that was something I noticed today.
Yeah. He Pod saves the day, and this is my only slight gripe here. It is slight, but I do have kind of an issue with the way the episode ends. Tyrion really should have stayed in the fight to complete the battle here and complete his arc. I
Yeah.
feel like he's slightly been robbed of his hero status here. He doesn't have to eventually save the day. You can still have Tywin swoop in and do that.
Yeah.
But for him to be taken out and be inactive at the end
Yeah,
and just kind of
it
do it in
cheapens it
this
a little bit.
haze, yeah, it does cheapen it slightly. Now, as
Especially
I said,
because he missed out on this opportunity in the first battle that he didn't get to because he got knocked out early on.
yes.
I mean, it's kind of like it's almost as if they're saying, well, yeah, he can do all this great stuff. He's a great thinker, and he has inspired the troops and he has led them into battle, whereas the king didn't. But he's still not a full man, so we can't really give him that moment. We can't let him have that because we would need him to be seen as less than human, less than heroic. At the end of the day, he's a half man, so we need to take that away from him.
Which is a real shame because
oh yeah, definitely.
I feel like we need it. However, what we do get works kind of. The only thing I will say, and I could be wrong, but I was pretty sure when Tywin rode out last week, he was going for Robb.
Yeah.
Not to King's Landing.
Well, this is it. We talked last week about the effects of linear time. And the fact that nothing made fucking sense. So the fact he's gone south instead of north, maybe as well as not being able to tell the time, and he can't tell the difference between night and day when it's light and dark. He also can't tell the difference between north and south, where one is snowing and the other one's sunny. Maybe he's just a bit fucking dumb.
I don't know. It's another one of those inconsistencies. Whereas I may not have batted an eyelid. I still would have felt the way I feel about Tyrion, but I may not have batted an eyelid at this. I'd have just gone, oh yeah, okay, of course he's going to show up and save the day because it's his family and he's the head of the army and stuff like that. But the fact that we actually know, unless I missed something last week because the episode was so boring and I tuned out, the fact that we actually know he's supposed to be going in the other direction.
Well, yeah, because that was the whole point of Arya trying to get him killed before he left. That they were going north.
Yeah.
While the Starks were distracted.
That kind of makes me question it instantly and go, what? So it pulls me out slightly. Now, having said that, I am instantly pulled back in and I go with it because, again, this is masterful writing and masterful direction. Cersei's voiceover over these final scenes, it's eloquent and it's well delivered and there's no other word for it. It is masterful. The writing and the juxtaposition of that over these scenes is masterful. And it goes to show, this whole episode, in fact, goes to show what this show can achieve and what this story and this cast is capable of if it's just given to the right people and not entrusted to fuckwits.
Well, this is it. And this is what frustrates me the most, I think, to be honest, is that when this show is good, and I think we're practically the end of season 2 now. I think we're a quarter of the way through, so we're a quarter of the way through the whole show. So I think we're at a point where we can say this. When it's not being written and pushed in a particular direction by the fucking numbskulls who run it, it works really well. And I think the episodes are really engaging. They're really entertaining. They don't drag, and they keep people hooked in. Whereas when that pair of fucking clowns get onto it, everything just slows to a glacial pace, apart from the fucking orgies.
Yeah.
Because it's like they're running a frat house most of the time. And so it's really frustrating. I think for me, that's the biggest problem, is that I see every now and again just a glimpse of what I want this show to do. And as I've said before, like swords and sorcery and high fantasy and Dungeons and Dragons, not really my shtick. I'm not really that interested. And I was never coming into this show as a fan of that sort of stuff. And I sort of got onto it because it was recommended and I had nothing better to do because I wasn't working. And I for the most part, I enjoyed, but there were just things that jarred every now and again. And having now gone back to rewatch to do this podcast, I'm finding more and more things that jar. But ultimately, there are episodes that stand out and things you remember, and they're always from the ones that Dickhead number 1 and Dickhead number 2 didn't write or weren't involved with, or their moments have been lifted straight from the book because they haven't got the intelligence to do them properly themselves. And I think that's the frustration, is that when it's good, it's very good, and when it's bad, those two idiots did it.
You're dead right, and it's something, it was the part of the whole genesis of this podcast. Besides the issues with season 8,
yeah,
part of it was that for years for years I've said exactly that about this show. You know, when it's good like this, it is absolutely top notch and it has so much potential and I really enjoy it. But when it's bad, fucking hell, it's bad. It's really bad. It is a show of extremes.
Yes, it is.
And that's kind of what led me to wanting to do this, because in general, I think the bad actually does outweigh the good as well. It's just that when the good comes, it's so fucking good that it gets you over those weeks where it is bad. And so, yeah, that sort of rounds the episode out. We get this lovely voiceover over Tywin sort of riding through the gates and announcing that the battle's over, we've won. And then we get different end music. We get the Rains of Castamere over the end credits, which is a weird juxtaposition with the actual end of the episode. Now I understand that it's the Lannisters song, but it's oddly kind of downbeat.
It is. It's kind of dirgish, isn't it?
And it is, and they've just won the battle.
Am I right in thinking it's Charles Dance doing it as well?
I don't know.
Sounds like it. I might be wrong, but it certainly sounds like him. But yeah, it's just, given that this is they've just won. None of our leads, none of our heroes have died. They've taken some flack. They've taken some casualties, and Cersei was on the brink of murdering one of her sons. But no, it's ended well for them. So why you go out on a dirge, I'm not entirely sure.
No, me either. It doesn't make any sense to me. And even the episode itself, regardless of the victories, has been so exciting.
Yeah, it's been so well paced and so up tempo. And even if you went by and had this song being sung at a slightly higher speed and with a slightly higher voice, because I mean if it is Charles Dance or even if it's not, the voice it's being done in is very low. It's very bassy, and again that just makes it sound even slower.
Yeah,
and I think that it just doesn't fit.
No, it really doesn't. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely bizarre.
Yeah. But yeah, there you go. That rounds out what is, quite frankly, a phenomenal episode. My notes just say, wow.
Yeah.
Literally, wow. It's wonderfully directed, or masterfully directed, really. And save for the slow start.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate rape conversation and the scene with Sansa.
Yes.
It just zips along without a breath. You know, this thing is relentless. The pace is perfect. It's tight. It's focused. And save for that slight misstep, like, I cannot fault this. The performances are great. The writing is great. It's shot beautifully. This is Game of Thrones at its absolute best. Yeah, this is the show bringing its A game, and it shows, as we've just mentioned, just what this show is capable of when it's firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly for me, this is the best episode we've had so far across the 2 seasons.
I agree.
I think that, I mean, I've not found this season as much of a slog as I did last season. I think
nowhere near it.
Yeah, I mean, the second half of season 1, I wanted Ellen Payne to take my head off rather than Ned's, because I would have enjoyed that more, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we've had some slow episodes the last couple of weeks, but I mean, this has come out swinging, and I'm now slightly disappointed there's only one left in this season, because I mean, we're gonna have a break over Christmas, so I'm not gonna be going back to this for probably a month or so now, and I'm actually quite disappointed by that, because I want to carry on.
Yeah. But let's assess that again after the end of next week, shall we?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, this is something, I mean, we talked about last season. We'll talk about it every fucking year, or every season that we do, that the penultimate episode is always a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And then the last one is just like, we're getting off the ride now and getting out of the queue and going to get popcorn.
Yeah.
What do you fucking do? And yeah, it's one of those where you just think, well, after all that, why do I care? I want more excitement. I want something to happen. I want consequences of that. I don't want to see people sitting around and talking about it.
No,
it's like watching sport. You get the action, and you get just as long again of people talking about it. I said, well, fuck me, just put another game on.
Just put another game on, yeah. But yeah, there you go. That is episode 9, Blackwater. The best to date, one of the best. if not the best. We'll discuss that as we go through, I guess.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
certainly not an episode that jumps out to me
No,
that
I
I
mean,
enjoyed more.
in terms of set pieces, we'll have the Battle of the Bastards coming up. We'll have the Longest Night, or whatever it's called in season 8. There are big sequences to come, and big episodes like this. But I mean, certainly this is the best we've had so far, and I think as we come to those, this is going to be the benchmark, and this is what we're going to be talking about and comparing those two, especially when they start going wrong.
This is definitely the benchmark. It's one of the episodes that stuck out in my mind when we were talking about doing the rewatch. As I say, there are moments mostly from the other episodes that I remember. This episode as a whole stuck out in my mind. I remember enjoying it very much first time through and being kind of blown away by it. There is another Neil Marshall episode to come, which equally sticks out in my mind as a whole episode. And I think I might prefer that one, but I need to watch it again now, in the context of having seen this one again to fairly judge them. But it is another Neil Marshall episode, so that tells you something as well.
Yeah, it does. Also, just as a sidebar, the fact that we've not ranted as much and not had as much to complain about means this is our shortest episode, I think.
Yeah, I was just thinking that as well. This is zipped by, and it's because I've got nothing real negative to say, save for the few minor grumbles.
Yeah, which I mean, they're not significant enough or sufficient enough to really cause any sort of problems. I mean, there's no real consternation here, I don't think.
No, so I guess what we should be saying actually to our boys Benioff and Weiss is actually thank you for being fuckwits and giving us material.
Well, yeah, that's right, and also thank you for staying the fuck away from this episode.
Yeah, look, I'd far rather have another 50
64 no 54
short episodes because I've enjoyed the show than 54 absolute 2-hour rants because the show has wound me up so much. I don't know what you prefer, listeners. I'm guessing probably the latter, in which case you're in luck because that's what the majority of the show is going to be, I think.
I think so.
It only gets worse from here. That's the thing.
Well, this is I mean, I've said, for me, this is the best episode so far. This one definitely takes some beating, and there's in season 5 there are some really good scenes with two of my favorite characters, which is some of the best dialogue I've ever seen filmed in a TV show in terms of performances, and I'm looking forward to that. But generally, this is the peak. This is the pinnacle, and it's going to slide from here, I think. There
are high points from here out.
They're not this high. Yeah, they're not this high. They're peaks which are far outweighed by their troughs, and they don't reach these dizzy heights again, I don't think.
But who knows? Maybe in a rewatch.
Well, yeah, keep listening for the next 6 seasons, because otherwise there's no point in us doing the show. But keep listening, and we might find some more.
Yeah, maybe on a rewatch things will surprise us. That certainly happened already through the course of these seasons. My opinions on some things have been far worse. My opinions on others have been quite surprisingly, I remember, they're far better than I remember them. So there could be some stuff to come, which in a different context and being watched in close proximity to the other episodes as well, because we're taking a couple of weeks to a month break between seasons at most, as opposed to years. Maybe our opinions will change.
Maybe.
Let's see, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, in the meantime, I'd say if you want to have a chat with us, want to get in touch with us, you can catch us on email, gom@ddpodcast.net. You can go to our website, ddpodcast.net, where you can find the previous season, all the episodes for this season, and some other shows as well, which are pretty great and pretty fun. You can find us on Facebook with the Double On Podcast Network. You can find us on Twitter @ddpodcastnet. But yeah, get in touch. Let us know what you think. Have a chat. I mean, Christmas is coming. We're going to take a break shortly. So I mean, we need other people to talk to. We can't talk to each other all the time.
Unless you want me to scream into the void.
Well, yeah.
In which case,
that as
drop me a line. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, just do it probably easiest via Facebook, because we both monitor that somewhat. And yeah, we'll set that up, and I can have a week off and rest my throat a little bit. But yeah, until next time.
Game over.